Men should not play trans women. I cannot tell you how important this is and how much it actually impacts and damages people's lives. This is no longer about a frivolous disco musical. Oh my god, hey. Welcome back to my kingdom of stagey isolation. If you are seeing my face for the first time, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. This is my stagey YouTube channel where I talk about shows and I go see shows and I review things and I make a lot of fun videos, and sometimes I address controversial situations such as this fun one we are talking about today. I am wearing my Priscilla Queen of the Desert t-shirt today because I love this show. I have so much love for this show. It was one of the first shows that really showed me queer characters living authentically on stage, which is part of the reason why it's so upsetting to see the current situation go on as it has. Let's rewind and go back to the beginning. So, Priscilla Queen of the Desert is a stage musical based on a classic queer film. Very famous film. Australian film.
Come on girls, let's go shopping.
The musical premiered in Australia, transferred to the West End, ran for years at the Palace Theatre, transferred to Broadway, did quite well. Since it closed in the West End, there have been very regular tours. I think there's been at least 3 already, perhaps 4. I've seen 2 of them. Each time that original production of Priscilla Queen of the Desert premiered in a new country, the role of Bernadette was played by Tony Sheldon. Bernadette is a drag queen who is also a trans woman. If this is confusing for you, this is someone who was assigned male at birth, lives their life as a woman, but also works as a drag queen. This is not uncommon in the drag community in the real world. This reflects a very common story where performers expressing themselves through drag helps them to learn more about their own gender identity, and they go on a journey of self-discovery because of that, because it allows them that freedom of expression. The other 2 protagonists of Priscilla Queen of the Desert are cis male drag performers. So Tony Sheldon is a cisgender male who played Bernadette in the original stage production. Terence Stamp, a cisgender male, played Bernadette in the original film production. In every subsequent UK tour I've ever seen, the role of Bernadette was played by a cisgender man. When I did an amateur production of it, where I ended up in a wheelchair in the wings doing backing vocals, go watch my onstage mishaps video for that story, because I don't have time to tell you now. I made some choices. In that production, Bernadette was played brilliantly by a cisgender male performer. It's sort of all I had ever known about this character, so in my own ignorance, it seemed okay. It's worth saying as well, this being a light-hearted comedy show that does touch on some more serious themes, generally Bernadette is characterized as a sassy queer elder, familiar of many gay men, but generally performed with an added layer of femininity. Is this an authentic portrayal of a trans woman? No. But for whatever reason, I had never questioned this casting. Cut to COVID-19 shutting down all of the theatre, basically worldwide, including this particular tour. Miles Weston, a cisgender male actor, had been playing the role of Bernadette on this tour prior to its premature closing. While theatre has been shut down, there has been a lot of chance for conversation about how theatre needs to return and how it needs to be more inclusive. And there's been so much great and necessary and promising dialogue about that, about opportunities for black performers, for trans performers. There is a great deal that the theatre industry, both in the West End and on Broadway, and in the UK outside of the West End, need to address moving forwards. In March of this year, the Priscilla Queen of the Desert UK Tour producers announced they would be holding an open casting call for trans performers. This was met with a lot of enthusiasm, but my concern at this time, because of the nature of the wording of this, and just because of some general preconceptions, I sort of knew they were not casting for the role of Bernadette. Now it has been announced the tour is hoping to restart with some new tour dates. Miles Weston will be returning to the role of Bernadette, but in an attempt to offset the negative publicity they knew this would cause, the producers have cast some new members of the cast, including brilliant trans actress Ali Daniel, who will be understudying the transgender role of Bernadette, as well as understudying the role of another drag queen called Misunderstanding, and understudying one of the divas, a role traditionally played by cisgender actresses. And this is a huge opportunity for her. However, the controversy has come that a cisgender man should not be cast to play a trans woman. Further to this, casting a trans woman to understudy the cisgender man does not fix the problem, it sort of adds insult to injury, for various reasons. One is it marginalises the trans performer as the understudy to a cisgender performer, and secondly, it's sort of an acknowledgement from the producers that they know that this is how the role should be responsibly cast, and yet they are refusing to. There's lots to unpack here. While the role has usually been cast a certain way before, with a few exceptions, including a regional Chicago production where Bernadette was played by a trans woman, this does not mean this is how we have to move forwards. At a certain point, things are recognised as being unacceptable. It's happened with blackface historically in the theatre, and while I'm not equating these two things, there's a similar lesson to be learned here about how audience appetites and society's understanding of morality changes over time. While I'm sure Miles Weston gives a beautiful performance as Bernadette, it is no longer socially responsible to cast a cisgender male as a trans female. Let me explain to you why. Now, the documentary Disclosure on Netflix does an excellent job of explaining the very real parallel between casting men as trans women and the violence perpetrated against trans women worldwide. This is because it furthers the false and damaging narrative that trans women are not women, but that they are really men in dresses, which categorically is untrue. Trans women are women, and there is no better way to show this to people than to have trans women play trans women and not be played by men. Transgender casting in film, theatre and television has been abominable in the past, but there are two categories it falls into. There are the kind of performances where Eddie Redmayne will play a transgender woman even though he is a cisgender male, and there are the kind of performances where Felicity Huffman, a cisgender female, will play a trans woman. Neither of these are ideal for reasons I will expand on in a minute, but Felicity Huffman's casting is, dare I say it, preferable, because if you're going to cast a cisgender performer as a trans character, at least cast them with the right gender. Women should play women. Men should not play trans women. It is damaging. It furthers a regressive and idiotic falsehood. I cannot tell you how important this is and how much it actually impacts and damages people's lives. This is no longer about a frivolous disco musical. The reason it's so important to cast trans performers, not only because there are so many brilliant trans performers who aren't able to get work because they are pigeonholed into a certain box and roles are just not written for them, but also because even though I understand acting has to go beyond your lived experience, the best acting performances come from a place of truth and authenticity and bringing an element of your own lived experience and transposing that to the lived experience of your character. Let's discuss Ali Daniels' casting, because a lot of people have put a positive spin on this by saying, well, let's just go when Ali Daniel is on playing Bernadette, let's go and support her, and I'm all for that. Ali is a phenomenal performer and vocalist. However, the honest answer here is that Ali Daniel is not really the right type for Bernadette because she is far too young. A lot of Bernadette's belligerent humour comes from her age, and she is this maternal elder figure to the other characters in the show. It doesn't help that Nick Hayes is older than most of the actors who are usually cast as Adam, and Bernadette's a very maternal figure to Adam, so if Ali and Nick are playing this relationship, it's going to be backwards almost. Bernadette also has a touching relationship with an older male character, so that may come across very differently with young Ali Daniel in the role. I'd like to read to you some of the statement that the producers put out in response to the backlash around the casting. They said, when we originally cast the production, we did audition trans performers, but despite seeing talent, did not find anyone suitable for any role in our production. They go on to say that after COVID shut them down, as some of our cast were not returning to resume their roles, it gave us the opportunity to expand our casting process, so this time we included an open casting call for trans performers because of other shows that have had success with open casting calls. They're stipulating here that this was only possible because other cast members chose not to return to their roles. The fact that Miles Weston has returned means this role was never up for grabs. This is never what they were auditioning for. The role of Adam in this production is played by the actor Nick Hayes, and when he wasn't on his social media blatantly flouting lockdown regulations last year, he was talking about how he needed to get back in shape to go back to Priscilla. The entire year he has spent saying how he needs to get back on fighting form to go back to Priscilla. His job here has never been in question. It's always been held for him as a role. I assume the same happened for Miles. We are aware that for some people, casting cis performers in the role of a trans character does not sit well. It's not only that, it's that you've cast a man to play a woman. It just doesn't make sense. It speaks to what you think of trans women, and that's the really upsetting and appalling part of this. We believe that inclusivity extends to all members of the company and that all roles are open to everyone. And yet you've managed to cast the other roles well. You've managed to cast the cis men as cis men, the cis women as cis women. You've managed to cast an Asian performer as the Asian character. So you clearly just didn't do a free-for-all. Clearly for those ones you think it does matter, but for this character you suddenly don't think this matters. That is what you're saying with this message. While I'm sympathetic to the fact that it is harder to cast trans roles because there are not as many trans performers, the reality of this is if you cannot cast the role properly and authentically, you do not produce the show. A lot of the performers who were at the open call for this said there were only about 7 of them who had been invited via their agents, and this paled in comparison to other recent open calls for trans performers, such as the one held by the Bring It On tour a few weeks previously. The Bring It On tour is an interesting case for this because they had twice cast a cisgender male to play a trans female character in their show and had responded to the criticism by recasting this with an open trans casting call. We haven't yet heard the results of this, but I am cautiously optimistic. When this happened, I was trying to think if I could brainstorm any trans actresses who I knew of who would be great in this role, and I thought about Adele Anderson from the cabaret troupe Fascinating Aida, who has also done stage work. She played Carlotta in a fringe London revival of the musical Follies. She would be a brilliant Bernadette because she's hysterical, she's age appropriate, just much better casting, and the kind of casting that would make me really excited to go and see the tour. This was such a great opportunity for them to do a momentous thing, and they've just completely failed as far as I'm concerned. In response to this, there are many groups and individuals that are co-signing a letter to regional theatres beseeching them not to host the tour of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, or advising them that they as audience members will be boycotting this production. When the Bring It On controversy was emerging, Ali Daniels was actually one of the loudest voices for change that I saw on social media, and so it's an uncomfortable silence now from her in regards to the Priscilla news, because through no fault of her own, she's not able to talk about it. You can't bite the hand that gives you an equity contract. However, were she not cast in this role, I'm very curious as to what her thoughts would be about a trans actress understudying a cisgender male performer in a trans female role. I think my biggest disappointment in all of this is I know that this is a show that is going to sell well. It has broad commercial appeal. It's being produced by Jason Donovan. It's based on a film. People know the disco classic hits that are in it. It is this recognizable quantity of a show that people will flock to. The hen nights will go, the gays will go, the ladies at the office will buy tickets in droves, and everyone will go and no one will have a problem with this casting. And when that happens, it will perpetuate this myth of trans women being nothing more than men in dresses. This is an incredibly contentious issue. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section, but just know that if you come to my comment section with any kind of transphobic abuse, I am going to delete your comment so hard. I make no apologies for that because I feel a lot of responsibility for a comment section that I am responsible for because it's on one of my videos, and I'm not going to foster an environment for any kind of transphobic abuse against an incredibly marginalised community. This is a safe space for everyone in the LGBT+ community, just so we're clear. But as I said, let me know your thoughts on this. Shout out any other brilliant trans actresses you think could be cast in this role. Whew. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel where I talk about a lot of other theatre drama and controversy that's going on at the moment. Also, if you want to support me as a stagey content creator, feel free to head over to patreon.com/MickeyJoeTheatre, where for a variety of membership prices, you can get access to all sorts of stagey perks and content, including extra YouTube videos, extended versions of these videos, and some extra stagey stuff as well. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!